Dana Charlton of the Ohio Self-Determination Association will be the moderator for our panel discussion today with Margie Pizzuti, Jed Morrison, and Kurt Schmitter. Come on up.
Good afternoon. I'm really thrilled to sort of be the moderator of this panel, which I don't think is going to need a lot of moderating, but I'll do my best to facilitate. They're pretty good on their own. I'm going to introduce first Marjorie Pizzuti. She has served as the president and CEO of Goodwill Columbus since 2005. Goodwill is the 6th largest nonprofit health and human services organization in Franklin County with a $44 million annual operating budget. Prior to joining Goodwill, Ms. Pizzuti was Senior Vice President of Strategic Marketing and Community Development at Nationwide Children's Hospital, and that was for about 10 years. Margie currently serves as the immediate past president of the Human Services Chamber of Franklin County. She's been appointed to numerous community boards, including the Leo Zasanoff Jewish Community Center, Action for Children, Directions for Youth, the Mauburn Academy. I think we have a little connection there, don't we? Sister Cities International, First Night Columbus, and the United Way Campaign Cabinet. Some of her most recent awards and recognition include CEO of the Year Award from Columbus CEO Magazine in 2014, and just last year from Capital University, the Honorary Doctorate of Humanities, Columbus Foundation Nonprofit of the Year, and Smart 50 Executive from Smart Business Magazine. We're very happy to have you here, Margie.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Jed Morrison, whom I've known forever, right?
Does that make you feel?
At least since 1979, 80, 81, probably. Jed is the superintendent and CEO of the Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities, an organization here in Franklin County that provides support to over 20,000 people with disabilities. In addition to Jed's work with the Board of Developmental Disabilities, he has been a member of the Bexley City Council for 14 years and previously has served as their president. He currently serves on many boards in the area, including the Ohio Coalition for the Education of Children with Disabilities. He's chair of the Nysanger Center Advisory Committee, the Children's Cabinet, chair of Columbus State Community College Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board, the Franklin County Criminal Justice Board, and the Columbus Diocesan Board of Review for the Protection of Children. Jed is the former director of the Ohio Special Olympics, where he also assisted the Kennedy Foundation with Special Olympics programs in South America and Europe. And he's the author of the Special Olympics Event Director's Guide, which has been used all over the world. We do a round of applause for you, too. How's that? And next to Jed is Kurt Schmitter, who is the Director of Workforce Development for the Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities and for the ARC Industry Boards. And I think Kurt's going to share some more information about both of those, right? So we are going to have sort of a panel presentation, and then we're going to open it up for questions. One of the key focus areas in the field of disabilities at this point in time is employment. And since most every one of you in the room is an employer of sorts or has connections with people who are, you're a great audience for this discussion today. So I think we're going to let Jed start. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. You can speak from there or come up here.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you very much, and thank you to the Rotary for inviting us. This is just terrific. In fact, I was reflecting with Jack as I was driving down here. About 40 plus years ago, I spoke to the Columbus Downtown Rotary. At that point, I was director of the Ohio Special Olympics, and we were trying to get things cooking in Ohio with Special Olympics. And this Rotary was supportive then. And my understanding is that Rotaries throughout Ohio continue to be very supportive. So a very belated thank you for all that you've done and continue to do for Special Olympics, which is one of our programs. Well, my job is to offer a little bit of a perspective in terms of where we were and where we are today to kind of set the tone for the future, and I think Margie and Kurt will talk a little bit about that. I think if I had a theme for my comments, it probably would be something like, some of you remember that old Virginia Slims ad that says, "We have come a long way, baby." And that's kind of the feeling I got when I was reflecting a little bit on our history. You know, it used to be that here in Columbus and Franklin County, there was really just one option for families, and that was institutions, or I guess you could say just staying at home without any real community-based options. And we have come a very long way from there. I'm not going to take you back to the 1800s when the first institution was built here in Franklin County that was called Columbus State Institute. I will take you back to the 50s and the 60s and the 70s when a number of very courageous parents said, look, we need to have more than that one option. We need to be able to access the community. We need to make sure that our children have opportunities for education. We need to have opportunities to work in the community. And those parents really were the ones who were responsible for changing things. You know, back in the early 70s, there were 2,500 people that lived at Columbus, what then was called Columbus State Institute, is now called Columbus Developmental Center. There were 2,500 people that lived at Orient State Institute. Today, Orient is a correctional facility. Columbus Developmental Center now has about 90 people who live there. So you can see there has been a huge, tremendous shift in terms of how we value people and how we value the services that are provided. I would say it's probably one of the best civil rights efforts for folks who have disabilities that you will ever see. And so it's those parents that came together to start services, started preschools. Actually, the first workshop here in Franklin County was started by Goodwill in 1958. And through that effort, they eventually were able to generate legislation to establish county boards, what used to be called County Boards of Mental Retardation. We changed the name to County Boards of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities. You may recall the term MRDD. And about 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, we changed the name to County Boards of Developmental Disabilities to try to remove that terminology that sometimes is offensive to folks, the retardation terminology. So that has been a change in name, but the real change has been in the services provided for people. Today, as a result of those families, as a result of people in our community who support the services, as Dana said, we are serving over 20,000 children and adults. We have fully inclusive early childhood programs. You know, doctors tell us, doctors from Nationwide Hospital, Children's Hospital, tell us that the greatest amount of brain development is in the first 3 years of life. And so the importance of intervening at a very young age with children that might have a delay in one or two areas to support their efforts is extremely important. We now operate, and actually students now have the right to have educational services. You know, it used to not be. As early as the early 70s, kids who had disabilities did not have the right to an education or did not have opportunities for education. Today, that is a law, and it has been for many years, and so children are receiving those supportive services. And then we move to adult area and the importance of employment. It used to be that sheltered workshops were about the only option for people coming out of school, people looking for options. Today, the first option is what's called employment. We talk about employment first. and helping people to acquire, and again, thanks to, and I would challenge everybody here, thanks to all of you for your support in employing individuals. And if you haven't, our business community has clearly recognized the value of employing individuals who have disabilities, the value that that brings to a company. And so there's been a lot of opportunity for change, and now literally hundreds and hundreds of people are employed in the community who have varying disabilities, and they're contributing very importantly to companies. The other thing that's changed significantly is that people are living in the community. Back in the early 90s, we established an organization here in Franklin County that our board provides funding for. It's called Creative Housing. It's a little different from Creative Living, but certainly on the same line. We have over 400 properties here in Franklin County, generally 2 or 3 4-bedroom homes, duplexes, apartments, where people are living down the street in every community in our good county here. And it's because, again, of all of the people in our community who are now so much more accepting of people regardless of disability. So we have, I would say, come a long way. And we are doing great things, but we certainly have a long way to go as well. And I think that Margie and Kurt will share with you a little bit about what we're looking at and the good work we do. I would reiterate a little bit of what Dana said. Kurt is a great partner, does great work, and we work together very closely, and his focus, of course, is employment. And Margie, through Goodwill Columbus, has been one of our agency's greatest partners. In addition to providing services, we also contract for services, and Goodwill Columbus has been one of the best partners you could imagine. So with that, I will turn it over to Margie, and I think we'll have opportunities for questions later.
I was going to stay seated because I didn't know if you could see me over this podium. So I'm assuming that you can. Thank you, Jed. It is actually an honor and a privilege to be on this panel with my esteemed colleagues. Jed and I actually go back to the late 70s as well, when we worked together on the passage of a levy for the Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities with Tad Jeffrey, I think it was. Kurt and I have been colleagues together and on the same journey together over the years, so it is absolutely my honor to be here as collaborators and partners with them and their agencies. What I wanted to do is take a few minutes, building on what Jed provided as some background, in terms of what we're doing at Goodwill. Not just around Employment First. Kurt's going to spend some time talking about Employment First, but in the area of what we call day services or day programs. And this real paradigm shift that we're experiencing now in that continuum that Jed referenced in terms of transitioning individuals that have developmental disabilities from pretty much segregated facilities into integrated community-based settings. And so in the area of work services, that's really important. In the whole area of how individuals with developmental disabilities live their lives and have the opportunity and should have the opportunity to be involved in the community in whatever way they want rather than to be facility-based, although, Jed, as you mentioned, for the last 30 or 40 years, that was revolutionary to get individuals out of institutions, out of their own home, and into facility-based programs like Goodwill and others in order to have individuals be more involved in the community. We're taking that next step, and the next step suggests that we can have individuals totally integrated in the community and really be facility free. So Goodwill has developed a 10-year vision in partnership with the Franklin County Board of Developmental Disability. Jed, you'll continue to be our partner as we move along this continuum. And as part of our vision at Goodwill, all individuals with disabilities and other barriers are embraced as valued and dignified members of our community. That's our vision. and we're going to make that vision a reality within the next 10 years, because our community is better together. And we need to recognize the importance of having individuals fully integrated into the community. So our goal by 2025 is to really focus on the 650 individuals that we serve every day in our facilities throughout Franklin County, and transition every one of those individuals from those facility-based programs and services and activities to be fully integrated into the community, so that we'll be facility-free. I mean, we'll use facilities as part of that, but the individual really will be fully integrated into the community. We're calling this person-centered community services. It's all about access. It's about options for that individual, just as any one of us in this room wakes up every day and we decide, most of the time, what we're going to do that day. We're going to go to work, we're going to take a vacation, we're going to be doing something in social recreation activities. Individuals with developmental disabilities need to move to that point where they have access, where they have dignity around those choices and autonomy around those choices. And that's what this is going to be about. So we have some strategic commitments that we're making as part of this move towards full integration into the community. That one of the commitments is that every individual has the right to live a meaningful adult life, and those individuals need to have the education to be empowered to make those choices. So part of what we're doing is going to be about educating the clients that we're serving, about educating the family members and the guardians of individuals, so that there's an understanding of what those options are. So we're going to be really recognizing that every individual has skills, talents, and interests that benefit their community and the workforce. And we're going to move towards that continuum of making sure that every individual has the ability to do that. We also will continue to be fierce advocates. Both Kurt and Jed provide the voice for individuals with developmental disabilities. More and more, those individuals are self-advocating. We, though, still need to be that voice, and so Goodwill, along with our partners, will continue to be fierce advocates for individuals we serve and the families and those folks that help support those individuals. And we really have sort of a rationale, a four-point rationale for why we're moving in this direction. And this is our 2025 vision. So all people should be included in the community and workforce. All people should have the opportunity to achieve their full potential. Communities win when they are diverse and inclusive. And my message to each and every one of you in the room who own a business or are in the position to hire individuals, we need to redefine what diversity and inclusion is in our businesses and look to the opportunity to hire individuals with disabilities in our community, including developmental disabilities. So we really are working hard to encourage businesses to view diversity in a broader sense in terms of the opportunity to hire individuals with developmental disabilities. So we have some key milestones that will take us through the next 10 years in reducing the number of individuals that are working on what's called 14C, or commensurate wage, and moving those individuals, all those individuals, as much as possible to competitive employment. Our plan is to move individuals from all of our facilities into community-based programs and activities by 2025, and we're on a path to do that. And again, working really closely with our partners. So this is an exciting time for us. It is not easy, particularly because in communities like Franklin County and Ohio in general, we have a lot of what we call legacy programs, both community-based work services as well as residential, many individuals that are involved with the programs that are facility-based. What I tell stakeholders and decision makers on the local, state, and federal level is we have to find that right cadence. Do it right, not quick. And be mindful of the fact that our number one client and the number one folks that we serve are the individuals that we serve. So I'm going to stop there, and hopefully I didn't talk too much, and turn it over to Kurt, who will really focus in on the area of education. And also note that from a residential services perspective, we are also engaged in downsizing our 23-bed intermediate care facility so that all of those individuals, those 23 individuals, will be living in integrated independent settings in the community, and that's also a part of the trend. So, thank you.
Well, again, I want to thank everyone for allowing us to have the opportunity to talk with you. Employment is something that's very near and dear to me, and I've been fortunate to be with the county for 27 years, and I've really seen the growth over those 27 years. Back in 2012, Governor Kasich signed an executive order, and that was employment first. And in employment first, it states that competitive integrated employment should be the first and preferred outcome for individuals with disabilities. ARC Industries Franklin County Board have been in the employment business since 1982. So we were already doing this, but what has really changed, and really in the last 5 years, is we have a great understanding that for individuals to be placed competitively and to be successful, we have to do a very nice job of matching the individual to the employer. It's got to be a win-win. We have to help the employer. But what we've seen also during that time is the employers and the associates from organizations, you're providing excellent natural supports. You know, we will bring in a job coach and we will train that individual, and then we fade away. But what happens after that is associates within your organizations are providing that day-to-day support. And what's really great is the day that that person doesn't show up. And I say that sincerely because what happens is someone picks up the phone and calls us and says, "Is Kurt okay?" You know, Kurt never misses work. Is he okay? So, again, we've come a long ways. We have, you know, within Franklin County ARC Industries, we have 519 people working in 536 jobs. And what that means is some people really like their job, but they need 2 jobs. You know, that's just critical. And, you know, when I talk about we have to understand the employer's needs, something we did several years ago, it was a 5-year struggle to get it up and running. But we have partnered with DSW, and we have a project search. This is an adult model. There's a lot of project searches around the nation and actually internationally, but those are primarily with students. We identified that, you know, Columbus 2020, the goal is to continue to bring more and more logistics companies in. We identified that our associates could be good workers in the logistics companies. It also really excited me, some of the individuals who are on the autism spectrum, they're very good with cell phones, handheld devices. And when I talk about a natural support, that's one of the things that logistics provides people. You know, you're using an RF scanner, so you're scanning things, and it's measuring your productivity throughout the day. And it will automatically tell you you're 5% behind your goal or you're over your goal. So that's a real natural support for our folks, and it's been very, very successful. I cannot thank, the Columbus Chamber enough, and DSW, because when we first started with this, I had requested a meeting with Jeff Zimmerman from the Columbus Regional Logistics Council and with Jeff Gerard from DSW. And it was just, how do I get it started? What can we do? And over 2 to 3 months, what really started to happen is DSW said, I want to be that host site. I don't want someone else to do it. I want to do it. And again, it's so successful. We started late in 2014. To date, we have placed 18 individuals in logistics. 16 of them still have their jobs, and the average pay is $11.75. The best story is Paul. Paul got a job at FedEx by himself. Paul was not successful. Paul was let go. He did not respond well to supervision, and he did not meet the productivity requirements. Paul came through Project Search at DSW. We reached back out to FedEx. FedEx hired Paul, and within 2 months, Paul was the Merchandiser Associate of the Month for the highest productivity and the highest accuracy. Paul then got his driver's license. Paul started earning money. Paul bought a car. Paul is driving to work every day now and still very successful. And I think everyone needs to understand, us baby boomers, we're going to be retiring. And the labor market is shrinking. And there's not a better talent pool than the individuals we serve. It takes commitment from the employer. It takes commitment from us. But if we do a successful job match, it's going to, like Margie had talked about, it's going to diversify your organization. It's going to bring value to your organization. One of the things that people often forget is the amount of money and the incomes of individuals with disabilities. And 85% of us consumers prefer to do business where they hire individuals with disabilities. So again, I would encourage all of you to go back, think about things. A perfect example is an engineering firm. You're paying an engineer to run a photocopier. That engineer is way behind on his projects or her projects. One of our individuals can come in and can be trained. They can do all your mailings. They can do all your scanning of your documents. They can do the photocopies. And what's that do? That improves the productivity of your organization. And it's a great opportunity for some of our individuals. And we are a long, long ways from where we need to be. But the places our individuals are placed now are tremendous. We still have individuals working at Giant Eagle and Kroger's, and I think those are valuable jobs. And a lot of times it's just like my son, when he became of age and had to get a job. It's a great resume builder, but we shouldn't stop there. We can look further. We just had CARF accreditation last week, and one of the surveyors went out to Dynalab, and I'm sure some of you know Dynalab. And I think that's one that I like to stress to people. Because I get the question, what can a person with a disability really do? These individuals, we have 6 individuals that are working at Dynalab, on Dynalab's payroll, and they put circuit boards together. They're on an assembly line, and they're not the first person on the assembly line. Often they're the last person because of the attention to detail. And what happens is you have to QC everything that was put on that board prior to you. Sherry, she's a strong advocate. She's the HR person at Dynalab. She does a lot of public speaking for us. And I think if Sherry was up here, she can tell you it's a win-win. And again, our individuals can bring value to your organization. So with that, I thank you.
Thanks to all three of you. Do we have some questions out in the audience? Yes, sir.
Pretty fundamental, but developmental disabilities is a broad term. Could you give us some more insight into who the folks are you're talking about? Describe in a little more detail the mental and physical disabilities that they have.
That's a great question. And developmental disabilities is defined, really, there are sort of three characteristics that define developmental disabilities. First of all, it's a disability that originates in the developmental years. So it'd be prior to the age of 22 as defined by law. So it's a disability that originates prior to the developmental years. It's a disability that's expected to last indefinitely. So what that means is it's not a broken leg or a broken arm. It's something that is expected to last indefinitely. And then it also, according to the way the state defines this, results in what are called substantial limitations in a number of different areas. So we could have, I would say within our agency, probably 50% of the people we serve have intellectual disabilities. We serve a number of people who might have cerebral palsy, who might have Down syndrome, who might have traumatic brain injury. I often talk about a story of a young man that I knew as a child who had just graduated from high school. He was very successful, being prepared and ready to go to college. He was in a car accident at the age of 19, and as a result of that car accident, over $1 million in various surgeries, he became significantly disabled. He was no longer able to walk. He was no longer able to learn like he did previously. He was technology dependent. He had a trach and was very, very involved. Because that happened at age 19, prior to the age of 22, and because it was expected to last indefinitely, and in fact it did. He unfortunately died about 8 years later. And because it resulted in 3 functional limitations, as the law states, he became eligible. So we have a very diverse group of people who we serve, and that's why our numbers have grown so over the years to close to 20,000 here in Franklin County. It's a great question.
And let me add one thing to that. What's very interesting is if the accident that Jed described had happened at age 27, the person would not be eligible for services and supports through the Franklin County Board because it doesn't fit in the definition. So there are lots of services, supports, and accessibility issues that, if they could be resolved, would serve an even greater population than those folks who are developmentally disabled. Other questions? Yes, sir?
Yeah, I shop at Kroger regularly. I suppose there could be a lot of reasons for that, but the reason I do is I was made aware that they do hire, they're committed to hiring people with, disabilities.
Definitely. I see people with disabilities at Kroger's just about every time I go there.
And that's absolutely correct. And we have a really strong relationship with Giant Eagle as well. One of their core values that they actually brought from Pittsburgh was to really commit to training and employing individuals with developmental disabilities. And so they have been a terrific partner as well.
Good. Yeah, that was my question. Can you name what are other companies or corporations here in Central Ohio that are committed to that you can let us know about?
If you just repeat the question.
Yeah, I believe he was asking what other employers or organizations are supporting. We are beginning to get a foothold into OSU and the OSU hospitals. We just recently on Good Day Marketplace had a segment with Regina. Regina's been there 10 years. What she does is she's in the research part, and she sterilizes all the beakers, and then she does a mail round. Huntington National Bank, they're really beginning to get aggressive in diversity. And we have Nicole out there, and I just met with them last week. They have a large scanning operation on Morse Road, and then there's one up by Polaris. and we're very hopeful that we can continue to grow with them. You know, Giant Eagle, for the individuals, ARC Industries in Franklin County, we have 34 individuals working at Giant Eagle currently. And the nice thing about Giant Eagle, you know, the retrieving carts is one thing, but we have individuals that are working in the delis, and the bakeries, stocking shelves. So it's really, and as Margie said, Giant Eagle is really looking to build a career with those individuals. Kroger has been an excellent employer for us. And I can just go on. And if you look on your on the tables, there's ARC Industries annual reports, and part of that ARC Industries report will show all the employers in 2015 that hired people competitively.
Greg?
I happen to have a developmentally disabled daughter, and even though my business is in Columbus, and I'm sure we're paying a certain amount of taxes for that, we happen to live just over the border in Delaware County. What's your relationship with the surrounding counties? And I noticed on your list of employers, they're all over the state. So there's an interconnect here, but I don't know what it is. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Every county has a county board of developmental disabilities by law, and so we do have actually a very good relationship with surrounding counties. You know, when a person moves, for example, from X county to Y county, they bring with them generally a lot of the folks are supported with what are called Medicaid waivers. It's a funding source. And so they would bring that waiver with them from the other county to the new county. And there are situations where folks in Delaware County might work in Franklin County and vice versa. So we maintain, I think, a pretty good and positive relationship. Each county has its own character, might be a little bit different in terms of how they develop their services, but the basic requirements are the same, and the boards are established in the same way. Every board of developmental disabilities is a 7-member board, 5 of whom are appointed by the county commissioners, and 2 of whom are appointed by the probate judge in that county. And at least 3 of the board members are required by law to be family members of people who are eligible for or receiving services. So I would say we have a very good relationship and certainly work and learn from each other.
John?
First, I want to commend you for what you're doing. This is wonderful. And I have a vested interest. About 25 years ago, I was involved with Goodwill Industries in Dayton, and I want to let the group know what can be done. We had teams of people in vans, developmentally disadvantaged, with drivers, and we maintained the janitorial work for 185 buildings at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That shows you what people can do if they get the opportunity, if they get the supervision, and if they get the structure that they can work in. It's remarkable. You guys are great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We actually at Goodwill have $6 million in contracts, both janitorial and unarmed security. We provide unarmed security for the Bureau of Workers' Comp building downtown, and 60% at least of the individuals on those contracts have to have a documented disability. Many of those have developmental disabilities. We have $1 million in janitorial contracts at The Ohio State University. So thank you for mentioning that. We appreciate it.
Question over here, Steve? Or
Yes, I just wanted to ask, I guess it will be a difficult question. I spend a fair amount of time in Children's Hospital that covers a big spectrum of the range that you're talking about for developmental disabilities. But most employment is really from small businesses with 15 or fewer employers. And if you engage in employment of a disabled individual in a small business, I'm sure corporate health insurance and that pay to that employee interact.
who wants to take that?
I'll give it my best
And
shot. I mean,
can
the employer.
Repeat the question, please.
I think your question centered around how does a small business handle insurance for employees and various benefits and those kind of things. Of course, it's very business specific, I would say that first, and they, of course, have to follow the same laws. But there are situations where some of the folks who are employed who might have disabilities have what's called a Medicaid waiver, as I just mentioned. And that Medicaid waiver allows for a person, that can be their insurance. Medicaid is an insurance program, and in fact, the limits for numbers of people that can be eligible for Medicaid have increased, as you may recall. And so that often is the answer for a lot of the folks, where the person's primary insurance does become Medicaid, and it continues. And there are ways for people to maintain Medicaid. A couple of things recently that have happened in legislation allow for people to actually save money and establish separate accounts. They're called ABLE accounts that the Ohio Treasurer establishes. And it allows people to have a little bit of money or assets and still be eligible for Medicaid, which of course has an asset limit. So that's generally how that works. Often the companies provide the insurance to the individual just like any other staff member, but in some cases for a small business where that expense is great, the Medicaid is very helpful.
Steve?
Well, I know 2025 isn't that far off, but what are the challenges that made you pick that instead of an earlier date?
Great question. In our case, it's because we have a large number of individuals that are involved in our programs, and there's a whole mix of their abilities and some complex issues related to their age. Sometimes it's a generational issue. Many of the individuals we're serving have been in our facilities for 25, 30 years. And so we made the commitment, as I said earlier, to do it right and not quick. We probably will, in the next 3 to 5 years, transition many of those individuals into community-based settings. I think that the remaining individuals are those that will provide us with some challenges. It is absolutely doable, but I think that's why we gave the 10-year runway for us to do it right.
One last question. I see 2 hands. Go.
Are you still having to wrestle with HR people when you place people?
I don't think it's been, I think we have found that over time, people have been much more accepting, and I think Margie and Kurt's comments regarding the value that diversity brings to an organization in a number of perspectives has been a message to HR directors. And I think if we can have an opportunity to meet with them, discuss, and talk about things like insurance and talk about those factors, we are able, I think, to see much more success. So we've been fortunate, and in Central Ohio, I think we have a very open and willing community, and people are they're recognizing the value. It's not a charity. They're recognizing the value of this. So I think we've been pretty fortunate in that respect.
Well, I just knew our company has hired over 100 people through COVA.
Okay, yeah.
And that was, I almost had to ignore them completely, the department. And but the system, I can't tell you how well it works. It's once installed, once with coaches, the whole thing. There is not a better source of good employees than what you're looking at.
I'm going to film a 30-second spot for you to put on TV. All right?
Right, you're our testimonial, because the road to employment, as you suggest, is through the HR department, is through the human resources, talent management areas. And when they understand and embrace this, it really makes a difference. Nationwide Children's Hospital, for instance, Ohio Health, even Cheryl's Cookies and Donato's. These are companies that when you interact with their HR leaders and they understand it with a lot of support from leadership, it really does make the difference.
What a great positive note to wrap this up. Applause for our panel.
Thank you, Dana, Margie, Jed, and Kurt. Wonderful program. And this meeting's adjourned.